Aamir and Sana stood at the center of their perfect wedding, unaware that Zayn, the best man they trusted like family, was quietly preparing to destroy their lives in the most horrifying way imaginable. The city was alive with excitement on the day of Aamir and Sana's wedding. Streets were lined with colorful decorations, and the hall shimmered under chandeliers, casting golden light across the crowd of guests. Friends and family gathered, dressed in their finest, exchanging smiles and laughter, completely unaware that behind the joyous celebration, something sinister was quietly brewing. Sana moved through the crowd in her white gown, radiant and full of hope, her eyes sparkling with dreams of a life she believed would be filled with love and happiness. Aamir stood by her side, equally happy, holding her hand with pride, smiling at the people who had come to witness their union. Among the crowd, Zayn, Aamir's best man, observed every detail with unusual intensity. No one suspected that beneath his polite exterior, a dark obsession had been growing for months. He lingered near the couple during the ceremony, watching Sana in ways that seemed normal at first glance, but there was a calculating edge in his gaze that nobody noticed. Every laugh, every glance, and every joyful cheer only fueled a hidden desire that had long been simmering beneath his calm demeanor. Guests danced and celebrated, capturing moments on cameras and phones, while the couple exchanged vows that promised trust and lifelong devotion. Yet, the joyous atmosphere was fragile, like glass that could shatter at the slightest touch. The flowers smelled sweet, the music played softly, and every element of the day was perfect, too perfect, as if fate itself was holding its breath. Behind the smiles and the shimmering decorations, a dark plan was silently taking shape. Zayn's presence, once trusted and friendly, was about to become the catalyst for a horror that no one could have imagined, transforming a day of love into a day of unimaginable tragedy. Sana had always believed that Zayn was a loyal friend, someone she could trust without hesitation. He had been part of Aamir's life for years, present at every celebration, every milestone, and every private moment of happiness. From the outside, his presence at the wedding seemed completely ordinary. He smiled, laughed, and offered congratulations, the perfect image of a supportive best man. But behind closed doors, Zayn's mind was a labyrinth of obsession and desire. He had watched Sana from afar for months, studying her gestures, her expressions, and the way she laughed at Aamir's jokes. Every small interaction he observed became a fuel for his hidden fantasies. No one suspected the darkness lurking beneath his composed exterior, the meticulous planning, or the way he carefully timed his moments to ensure no one noticed his lingering gaze. As the wedding day unfolded, the tension within him grew, coiling tighter like a snake ready to strike. He moved among the guests, chatting politely, shaking hands, and posing for pictures, all while mentally rehearsing the moment he had been anticipating for months. In his mind, the day was perfect, not for the celebration of love, but for the opportunity it gave him to act on the forbidden desire he had carefully concealed. Every smile from Sana, every joyful glance she shared with Aamir, intensified a dangerous compulsion inside Zayn, a compulsion that could no longer be ignored or contained. The irony of the situation was brutal. While the wedding was meant to symbolize trust, love, and lifelong commitment, it also became a stage for a dark and twisted plot that nobody could see coming. The person everyone believed to be trustworthy was already preparing to shatter that trust in the most horrifying way imaginable. As the wedding celebrations carried on, the hall filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses, a storm was quietly brewing in the shadows. Zayn had been waiting for this moment with a chilling patience, every detail of his plan carefully calculated over months. While guests danced and took photos, he followed Sana when she excused herself to the bridal suite, pretending to check on arrangements or offer assistance. No one noticed the tension in his movements, the way his eyes lingered a fraction too long, or the faint smirk that betrayed his inner intentions. Once inside the suite, away from the eyes of the guests and the security of Aamir's presence, Zayn's obsession erupted into violence. He forced himself upon Sana, a brutal act of betrayal and violation that left her terrified and helpless. In those moments, the safety she had felt all her life, trusting friends, loving family, and a husband she believed would protect her, vanished. Her body resisted, but Zayn's strength and cruelty overwhelmed her. Every second stretched into an eternity as fear consumed her, the room spinning with panic and despair. Zayn showed no remorse. He was a predator executing a plan that had been simmering in the darkness of his mind for months. The horror of what was happening was amplified by the fact that it occurred in a place meant to be sacred, a space of celebration, love, and commitment. In a twisted way, the contrast between the joyous sounds outside and the violence inside made the act even more horrifying. In those moments, the wedding ceased to be a symbol of love and trust. It became a trap, a nightmare woven into what should have been the happiest day of Sana's life. The shadow of betrayal had finally descended, leaving no chance for escape. Sana's mind raced as fear took hold, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. The room that had been a sanctuary of wedding preparations had become a cage, the walls closing in as Zayn loomed over her with a cold, calculating intensity. She tried to push him away, her hands trembling, but the force of his assault was overpowering. Panic surged through her, raw and suffocating, as she realized that no one was nearby to help. Each muffled cry she attempted to make seemed swallowed by the thick curtains and locked doors, leaving her isolated in a nightmare she could not escape. Zayn's face showed no hesitation, no remorse. It was as if the months of planning had hardened him into someone unrecognizable, a predator consumed by obsession and control. The realization hit Sana like a blow. Someone she had trusted implicitly, someone who had smiled at her alongside Aamir countless times, had turned into the embodiment of danger. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, to flee, yet every movement was met with resistance. The room, once bright with wedding flowers and golden decorations, now felt suffocating, shadowed by fear and violence. Time became a distorted concept, seconds stretched into what felt like hours, every moment etched with terror. Sana's mind raced for an escape, for any way to survive, but Zayn's grip and determination left little hope. In that room, she confronted a reality too cruel to imagine. Her trust had been shattered, and the person closest to Aamir had become the instrument of her suffering. The horror of the situation intensified as she understood the depth of the betrayal. This was not a momentary lapse or impulse, it was a meticulously executed act of cruelty, carried out in the very place meant to symbolize love and safety, turning her dreams into a living nightmare. Zayn's mind raced, but in his calculations, there was a chilling clarity. He knew that if anyone discovered what had happened, his life would be over, and more importantly, the obsession that had consumed him for months would be destroyed. Fear of exposure mixed with a cold, twisted resolve, and in a single, terrifying instant, he made a decision that would seal Sana's fate. He could not allow her to tell anyone what had occurred. Her survival threatened to undo the months of planning, the desire he had nurtured in secret. In that moment, the bridal suite, once a space of anticipation and excitement, became a chamber of doom. Zayn acted swiftly, a lethal combination of panic and calculated intent guiding his movements. Sana struggled, her pleas muffled by the shock and brutality of the attack, but Zayn's resolve was absolute. The violence was sudden, shocking in its ferocity, leaving no room for mercy. Within minutes, her life was taken, extinguished in the very place where joy and celebration had filled the air only moments before. The contrast between the wedding festivities outside and the horror inside the suite was jarring, almost surreal. What had been meant to be a day of love, commitment, and happiness became a tableau of betrayal and death. The reality of the act was almost unimaginable, a chilling reminder of how quickly trust can be shattered when obsession turns violent. Zayn's decision was final, there was no turning back. By the time the guests outside were still laughing, taking pictures, and toasting to the couple's future, the life of the bride had ended, leaving only the shadow of what should have been. The perfect day had transformed into a nightmare, a tragedy that would haunt everyone involved for the rest of their lives. Hours passed, and the celebrations continued outside the bridal suite, the music and laughter masking the horror that had taken place just beyond the door. Guests mingled, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded, taking photos and offering congratulations as if nothing could go wrong on such a perfect day. But soon, the absence of Sana's radiant presence began to draw attention. Someone noticed the suite had been locked for an unusually long time, and when a maid knocked gently without receiving a response, a growing sense of unease began to ripple through the staff. The door was eventually forced open, revealing a scene that would be burned into the memories of everyone present. Sana's body lay on the floor, her dress disheveled, her face pale and lifeless. The signs of violence were unmistakable, her body marked by the cruelty she had endured. Shock froze the guests in place, murmurs of disbelief spread like wildfire, and panic replaced the laughter that had filled the hall just moments before. Aamir, upon seeing the horror, collapsed to his knees, his mind unable to comprehend that the friend he had trusted most had caused this unimaginable suffering. Tears streamed down the faces of family members and friends as they tried to process the brutality of the act, the innocence of the bride destroyed in what should have been the happiest day of her life. The police were called immediately, cordoning off the area and beginning an investigation that would soon reveal the depths of betrayal. Every guest felt a mixture of fear, grief, and disbelief, struggling to reconcile the joyous wedding moments with the violent reality before them. The perfect celebration had been shattered, leaving behind a chilling reminder that evil can hide behind the most trusted faces, waiting for the precise moment to strike. Police arrived quickly, moving through the once joyful venue with urgency, their presence casting a heavy shadow over the shattered celebration. Officers secured the bridal suite, gathering every piece of evidence that might explain the brutality behind Sana's death. The room told a disturbing story: overturned furniture, torn fabric, and clear signs of a violent struggle. Forensic experts worked silently, documenting each detail, while detectives questioned guests to piece together the events leading up to the tragedy. As they reviewed footage from hallway cameras and staff testimonies, an unsettling pattern began to emerge. Zain, the best man, had been seen entering the bridal suite shortly before Sana disappeared from the celebrations. His absence afterward was suspiciously long, and his demeanor during the reception had appeared tense upon closer examination. DNA samples were collected, fingerprints analyzed, and traces of physical evidence began to form a puzzle that pointed unmistakably toward him. The investigators discovered inconsistencies in Zain's statements, the timeline he provided not matching surveillance records. His belongings were searched, revealing items that hinted at long-term obsession, photos of Sana taken without her knowledge, notes analyzing her movements, and messages he had written to himself expressing fantasies no one else had known existed. As each piece of evidence was connected, the horrifying truth became clearer: this was not an act driven by sudden impulse, but the result of deliberate planning. A sinister motive had been quietly developing long before the wedding day. The contrast between Zain's public image and the dark reality hidden beneath it shocked everyone involved. Friends who had once trusted him felt betrayed beyond comprehension. Detectives realized they were dealing not just with a crime of opportunity, but with a calculated attack carried out by someone who had concealed his intentions behind a facade of loyalty. The investigation moved swiftly toward a single, devastating conclusion: Zain was the perpetrator. As investigators dug deeper into Zain's past, they uncovered layers of disturbing behavior that had gone unnoticed for far too long. His polished reputation had always shielded him, allowing him to blend seamlessly into Aamir's circle of trust. But behind that facade lay a mind consumed by obsession. Detectives examining his phone found a hidden folder locked behind multiple passwords. When it was finally opened, its contents revealed a shocking truth. There were messages Zain had written to himself, long, detailed entries describing fantasies about Sana, imagined scenarios of possessing her, and disturbing plans that mirrored the events of the wedding day with frightening accuracy. The discovery stunned investigators. It was as if Zain had been rehearsing the crime in his mind for months. The notes documented the timeline he believed would be ideal, even referencing moments during the wedding preparations when he thought opportunities might arise. These entries were paired with photographs of Sana taken secretly during family gatherings and casual outings, images collected and stored with obsessive precision. Further analysis uncovered deleted files recovered from his device, drafts describing his frustration, his jealousy of Aamir, and his belief that he deserved Sana more than anyone else. The writings revealed a twisted narrative Zayn had created in his own mind, convincing himself that his feelings were justified, and that the wedding was the ultimate betrayal he needed to correct. This evidence turned the case from one of assumed impulse to one of chilling premeditation. The twist shocked the city. The best man, once celebrated for his loyalty and charm, had meticulously planned the destruction of the couple's happiness. The contrast between his outward friendship and the hidden obsession painted a picture of a man capable of deceiving everyone around him. The revelations intensified public outrage, transforming the tragedy into a national headline and leaving people stunned at how deeply evil could hide beneath a mask of normalcy. Zayn was arrested in the early hours of the morning, taken from his home as flashing police lights reflected off nearby buildings. The news spread rapidly, leaving the community in disbelief. People struggled to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the monster described in the investigation. As the case moved to court, every detail of Zayn's actions was laid bare. Prosecutors presented the evidence with precision: DNA findings, the timeline pieced together from cameras, and the chilling files recovered from his phone. Each item painted a clearer picture of deliberate cruelty, showing a man who had used friendship as a disguise to get closer to his victim. In the courtroom, the atmosphere was heavy with grief. Aamir sat in silence, unable to process how someone he had treated like a brother had destroyed his entire world. Members of both families attended the hearings, hoping for answers, though none could ease the pain of what had happened. The testimonies were emotional and difficult to hear, especially those describing the brutality Sana endured. Zayn remained expressionless throughout most of the proceedings, his lack of remorse only fueling the anger of those seeking justice. Witnesses spoke of how normal he had always seemed, how trusted he had been, and how no one imagined he was capable of such violence. Psychologists later testified that his obsession had developed long before the wedding, hidden behind years of calculated behavior. The trial became a painful reminder that sometimes the greatest danger can come from the closest places. After weeks of evidence and arguments, the court reached a verdict that left no room for doubt. Zayn was found guilty of assault and murder, his actions judged as both intentional and cruel. The sentencing brought a measure of justice, though the emotional wounds left behind would take far longer to heal. Years passed, but the memory of Sana's tragic death never faded from the minds of those who loved her. The wedding hall, once filled with music and celebration, became a symbol of a day that had begun with joy and ended in devastation. Aamir struggled deeply in the aftermath, his life reshaped by loss and betrayal. The pain of losing Sana was overwhelming, but the knowledge that the person responsible had been someone he once trusted made the wound even harder to bear. For a long time, he withdrew from the world, avoiding gatherings, celebrations, and anything that reminded him of the life he had planned with her. Slowly, Aamir began to channel his grief into something meaningful. He dedicated himself to helping survivors of violence, using his experience to shed light on crimes often hidden behind silence and fear. He supported organizations that provided counseling, legal assistance, and protection for vulnerable individuals. Through this work, he found a sense of purpose that allowed him to honor Sana's memory in a way that felt impactful. Each story he encountered reminded him of the importance of speaking out, of preventing similar tragedies from happening to others. Meanwhile, the case became widely known, discussed in schools, community centers, and social platforms as a cautionary tale about trust, hidden danger, and the importance of recognizing warning signs. People who had once overlooked subtle behaviors learned to pay closer attention. The story served as a reminder that evil can disguise itself behind smiles, charm, and years of friendship. Sana's family kept her memory alive through charitable acts, creating scholarships and support programs in her name. Her legacy became one of strength rather than tragedy, inspiring others to protect themselves and those around them. Though the pain remained, the efforts made in her honor ensured she